But it's a process whereby we come together and we identify that we're all of the same intelligence. We're all of the same source. I mean, it's like the oneness, the intelligence, the consciousness that is everywhere all the time. We're it. So when we come into the Sweat Lodge, those are some of the concepts that we hit on. And we even do things like give up our individuality to be in the Sweat Lodge for that time we're together, and knowing that we're all just part of this one intelligence. One, and we got all these hallucinations and all these illusions and all these rules about how we should be operating here. But we have options. We can shift. All right. Yeah, I'm Robert Pugh, and the land trust. This was a piece of property that Marta owned when they was putting the rail station in place. So they were buying land up down DeKalb Avenue, not knowing where they're going to put the Marta station. So once they had decided where they were going to put the stations, this was a piece of property here that they owned that they weren't going to do anything with. So the neighbors got together and purchased it. You know, they got a mortgage, and now they own it. And they turned it into a trust so that nothing will ever be built here. You know, it can't be developed. In 1970, I was in Vietnam. So in the mid-80s, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And as a result of that, they had me going to, the VA had me going to psychiatrists, psychologists, groups, had me on psychotic drugs. So all these things had such an impact on me. But what really saved me was the group. The dynamics of the group is what helped me to find some balance in myself. So once I was done with it, I started recognizing some symptoms that some brothers had that were similar to the ones that I had. So I would get them together in these groups and start sharing with them. And that's when we started going to the saunas up on Beaufort Highway. And when I got here, I started bringing them here. So that was the beginning of me doing the Sweat Lodge, that particular group. Well, you see, one of the things about, we don't, as men, we've sort of been conditioned not to expose anything that doesn't seem to be really firm, and we type, like we live in our egos, in our heads. So, to show some hurt or some pain or something that you rather not be seen, well, usually we don't move toward that direction. Being vulnerable. So what I did when I got them together, I started sharing some of the things that I had. Like, people aren't gonna tell you they had to go to see a psychiatrist. You're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. That sounds like something that I didn't want to say, So now I got to acknowledge that this is something that's going on with me. And I was in denial myself about it. I continue to say, it's, nothing wrong with me. I'd had these nightmares, flashbacks, and so many things would aggravate me. And I found myself always in confrontations. And it was about some shit that I was suppressing, anger that I had, and some resentment, guilt. A lot of those things that I was just in denial about. So as I started having this dialogue with these brothers, and I'm sharing about how I found myself being caught up with these negative emotions and how they were in control, and how I shifted, how I related to them. And then they started identifying. And yes, there was some shifts, some definite shifts. So a lot of these programs that we have, that we operate from, are outdated. So we got these old programs that were given to us by somebody else, and we still operating from them. So what we do is we just ought to get a peep in to see what kind of programs we're operating from, and get a look. And if they aren't giving the kind of results we want, then change them. Find a program that fits. And we all have the capacity to do that. Change.
Ancestors, take my hand from this transgressions greater than how I